Cullen live in 1 minute. Welcome to Lynn Cullen Live at pghcitypaper.com. Email your questions and comments to Lynn at pghcitypaper.com.
Hello there. Welcome to beautiful Friday, mid-June. I was going to say July. God help me. Mid-June in the year 2012. Beautiful blue sky over downtown Pittsburgh where the Furries are afoot. Jess and I were just talking about why don't they hold their convention in the winter? I mean, why would you want to be enclosed in all that heavy fabric and it's, in the 80s and maybe humid and I don't know, but they're out and about. And I was also wondering how we ended up getting them apparently in perpetuity. They came, about maybe 6-7 years ago the first time? Has it been that long? And we were all agog, hadn't seen such a thing in our lives, and, so the media went nuts and did all kinds of stories, and then they liked it so much here, they came back, and the media went crazy again, and then the third year, the media, we shrug it off now, and I suspect that's maybe why they come. They can get away from their own environs and be in a place that doesn't gawk too much and essentially welcomes them. There are furry specials at the diners around downtown. It's good eating here. You said there were little furry animals on the cupcakes. The local eateries have, welcome furry stuff. So I mean, They're happy here, and God bless them. They're spending their furry little money right here in Pittsburgh. So welcome, furries. I just don't know why you don't do it in the fall. How about in late October, where you got a better shot? You know what I mean? Of weather that wouldn't be so incredibly stultifying. Okay, so in looking around for things to discuss with you today, I was just minutes ago found something on from the Detroit News that is so, it's one of those things where you don't know whether to laugh or cry. I think I've decided to laugh, but you could just as easily cry. And since I really didn't have time to read the whole thing, this might as well be a stand-up comedy bit. Okay? The Detroit News, ladies and gentlemen, we ain't kidding. This is Dateline Lansing, the state capital. Michigan House Republicans, they control that body as they do in so many states. Michigan House Republicans prohibited State Representative Lisa Brown from speaking on the floor yesterday after she ended a speech Wednesday against a bill restricting abortions by referencing her female anatomy. Brown, West Bloomfield Democrat and mother of three, said a package of abortion regulation bills would violate her Jewish religious beliefs and that abortions be allowed in cases where it is required to save the life of the mother. So in other words, God, so these bills this package of bills does not even allow for abortions to save the life of a mother? And you wonder why some of us suspect that the Republicans have some kind of a death wish for, on women, a war on women. Oh, given the choice between saving the mother's life and the life of an unborn child, they opt for the unborn child, and the mother should die. I mean, I don't even comprehend that. What if the mother has other children? Well, I don't even need to argue it. I'm not going to go on. So this Representative Lisa Brown said, that's against my religion. And then she ended with this flourish. Finally, Mr. Speaker, I'm flattered that you're also interested in my vagina, but no means no. All hell broke loose. You know why? Because she said vagina. What she said was offensive, said Republican Mike Colton. It was so offensive, I don't even want to say it in front of women. Can somebody tell this clueless guy that women are not... What is he talking about? A vagina is a part of us. We have vaginas. Is it something... They think it's something dirty. They think it's something you're not supposed to talk about in polite company. They are so, fucked up. Majority Floor Leader Jim Stamos, Republican, determined that Brown's comments violated the decorum of the House. Brown said at a hastily called press conference, if I can't say the word vagina, why are we legislating vaginas? What language is it I'm supposed to use? That vagina is the medically correct term. The House Republicans barred this fellow House member from the floor the next day and barred another woman, another Democrat. They said she caused a disturbance on the floor when she wasn't allowed to introduce an amendment to the abortion regulations bill banning men from getting a vasectomy unless it was necessary to save the man's life. And she had said, if we truly want to make sure children are born, then we should regulate vasectomies. And no man should get one unless he's going to die if he doesn't. She was barred from coming onto the floor. And the other woman was barred as well. So these two female members of the legislature, two Democrats, two women, they're being shunned. They are being kept from representing and all because one said the word vagina and the other suggested that men get vasectomies, not be allowed to get vasectomies if they're so damn determined to make sure every potential zygote makes it to maturity. If I lived in the state of Michigan, I would, as much as things get crazy here, I can't imagine that happen. I guess it could have, of course. Why can't I imagine it? We also have a Republican-controlled legislature in Harrisburg. I suppose it could happen. You know why it wouldn't happen here? Because we don't have any women in the legislature to be shunned or shut up. Next to none. Unbelievable. Okay, so, where you wonder sometimes, how do women in these horrible places like Afghanistan, how do they live? How can you live in such a culture that is so repressive of every aspect of your being? You know what? Hang on another 5 years and we'll know. Getting close. Getting close. It's, I was listening to a disquieting interview, and it was by the author, I think her name is, Jane Mayer is what I want to say, an author whose most recent article, which she was talking about, is in the current issue of The New Yorker magazine. And it is about a guy whose name now I can't remember, but he's a conservative radio talk show host who reaches like 1 million people a day. Never heard of him. He's not one of the big names we usually, not Limbaugh, Hannity, blah, 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 blah. But this guy is the guy who is so right-wing. He loves Rick Santorum, by the way. Loves Rick Santorum. That when you listen to what he's touting, what you see is the real radical Republican agenda unmasked. He is willing to just flat out say what it is the end game is as far as Republicans, where they're heading, where they want it. Now, anyone who's paying attention can get the sense of where it's heading, because all of a sudden we're not, we're talking, everything's been pulled so far to the right that we're talking now, as we're still stunned by it, about the availability of contraception, correct? Did not that come up when the likes of Rick Santorum were, looking frighteningly like they might actually capture the Republican Party? The agenda is so unbelievable. It literally is to abolish government, essentially. That government should have no responsibility other than, of course, they love weapons, other than national defense. I believe that's it. National defense. Oh, and justice. That was the other. Oh, yeah, okay. National defense and justice, where they'll just execute anybody who comes before a court, I guess. Other than that, they don't see any reason for government. They especially have a genuine animus toward public education. We see the animus about public workers. Mitt Romney, you see the animus. We don't need any more teachers or police officers or firefighters. Any position that is paid for by government, any service provided by government, they don't want it. I don't quite comprehend the world they envision. I can't. It seems like it's so Darwinian as to be frightening. Lord of the Flies, here we come. But when you listen to what this guy says, and when you realize that he has a rapt audience of about 1 million, and as the reporter says, these are all these white evangelical types who the Republican Party absolutely has to get to vote for them, or they can't win. So you see why Mitt Romney is scared of these. This is the guy who forced Romney to get rid of the foreign policy advisor he introduced but who is gay. Remember that? That guy resigned almost immediately because there was this all hell broke loose that Romney had appointed a homosexual to advise him on foreign affairs. These people are unrelievedly homophobic. They believe that the right of free expression and freedom of religion applies only to Christians. This guy speaks what some of the more savvy, I guess, on their side don't say. He doesn't cover up anything. He doesn't, make it prettier or make it a little less scary. He flat out shows you where this party is heading. And it's doing it very quickly. I mean, in the time I've been bloviating in front of a microphone, things have changed so radically as to be stunning. So while it's actually happening, it's one of that, can't see the forest for the trees. It's one of those things. While it's happening, you sometimes you lose sight of the bigger picture. But if you step back a little bit, and a lot of people have been doing it, a lot of commentators will do it, and they'll say, well, even as Jeb Bush, for God's sake, said the other day, my father, Ronald Reagan, would be considered apostate in this current Republican Party, even though they continue to, trot Reagan out as if he's a god. He wouldn't pass muster. Nowhere near it. He worked with Democrats. He's been known to raise taxes. He was pragmatic on occasion. He was not purely ideological. He wasn't mean. He wasn't my way or the highway, although I'll give him this. He's the one who started the bashing of government. He's the one who started it. The most frightening words you ever want to hear. Remember his quote? This is Ronnie Reagan. Most frightening words you ever want to hear? I'm from the government, and I'm here to help you. So the demonization of government, at least to my mind, when I all of a sudden realized that there was one of the parties was suggesting that government in and of itself was bad, was an evil. And I had a lot of trouble initially trying to figure out why, if you think something is evil, do you want to be it? Do you want its power? Well, then Grover Norquist came along and he told us we want it. We want the power so that we can starve it. And you see Republican governors all over starving it. We've got our Corbett starving it, and consequently got more starving people in the streets, too. Public workers laid off, as if the idea of public worker is an offense. The idea of public education, what did Santorum call them? Propaganda mills or something? They really think public institutions are evil. Their love of the market and of private everything is so intense, is so uncategorically impregnable. They really don't want any exemptions. So now you have these Republicans actually barring two female Democrats from the House that they were elected to serve in because one of them said the word vagina on the House floor and offended all of these Republican men who are so somehow fixated on women's sexuality and gay people's sexuality. Not on their sexuality, not on homosexual male sexuality. That doesn't get their interest. They never want to legislate that. But everybody else's they do. So you look at the Taliban and you look at, radical Muslims and radical Jews, the real ultra-Orthodox Jews, and how they treat women, because women are dangerous. Women have this magical power. And that thing whose name we cannot say, that dark place in there from which all life issues. God must have found it a wondrous place. I don't know. All life issues from there. And yet, it's somehow evil and dark and unmentionable. You want to know what it's like to live in Kabul, Afghanistan? Ladies, hang on. And you Democrats, sit out a few more elections. Let these people keep... Hey, there was an article in the paper today. There was a picture, apparently MoveOn.org, you know, the big liberal, lefty organizational group. I don't know what to call them. Held a meeting here in Pittsburgh yesterday, and there was a picture in the Post-Gazette of the attendees. Do you know how many people showed up? 6. And they were all old, like middle-aged. 6. That's our side. That's our side. So if you want to start, well, I'm glad. I was going to say if you wanted to get fitted for your head covering and your hijab, whatever they call those disgusting tablecloths that women have to walk around in. I'll tell you what, you don't have to get fit for those, do you? That's the good part. That's the good part. You don't have to worry about how you look. Because you know the very sight of a woman's curves, a woman's leg, a woman's ankle, a woman's mouth, a woman's eyes, a woman's nose, ears, is something that is not allowed to be seen. Only by the men in the family who own her. Give it some time. Oh, yeah, the other thing about this guy, he's also a minister, by the way, the guy that is the New Yorker profile is about, he also absolutely believes in the supremacy of men. And he so believes it that he actually, in a conservative evangelical church, when the pastor's wife or something, an elder's wife, or a female wanted to serve in a capacity in the church that would give her some power, maybe as an elder or something, he went so ballistic, absolutely refused. No woman can have any kind of primacy over any male, absolutely not. And even this unbelievably conservative congregation threw him out. But he doesn't budge. And this guy has millions of people who listen to him daily, swallow his every thought and his perspective. And believe me, these are the people who think Obama's a Muslim, Obama wasn't born here, Obama is evil, Obama's going to destroy us, he has to be stopped. He has to be stopped so much that they're even going to hold their nose, that's what he says, and vote for this Mormon. Okay, after saying all that, I think I have to take a break. Blech. We'll be back.
Email your questions and comments to Lynn at pghcitypaper.com or call Lynn at 412-316-3381. Lynn Cullen Live will return in a moment.
You in the City and Hosanna House Summer Nights present Jazz Under the Stars, starring Najee, Friday, July 13th. 8 p.m. at the Sherwood Event Center in Wilkinsburg. Tickets available at Dorsey's, Stediford's, or charge by phone at 1-800-383-5760. Najee, live in concert July 13th. Proceeds benefit Hosanna House, a place called Hope.
Vote now. Who will be the chosen one in Pittsburgh City Paper's annual Best of Readers poll and register to win a new iPad? Pittsburgh City Paper, available at over 1,700 locations throughout western Pennsylvania, and on the web at pghcitypaper.com, and on your smartphone at citypapermobile.com.
The Town and Country Tour features 15 gardens in Squirrel Hill and Shadyside all day long on Sunday, June 24th. See these wonderful gardens, talk with experts at each stop, and support the Pittsburgh Botanic Garden, coming to life near Settlers Cabin Park. Order tickets by calling 412-444-4464 or go to their website at www.pittsburghbotanicgarden.org.
Gustavo and Vella wants to thank all of southwestern Pennsylvania, the USA, and the world for helping to liberate his native country of Equatorial Guinea. Equatorial Guinea has suffered 43 years of dictatorship, 43 years of human rights abuses, 43 years of corruption, and 43 years of kleptocracy. Even with $5 billion in oil revenue in 2011, the 700,000 citizens of Equatorial Guinea earn less than $2 per day. A proud Mount Lebanon resident, please help Gustavo and Vella usher in the 21st century by allowing freedom, democracy, and socioeconomic prosperity by the rule of law for the next 43 years and beyond. Email him at presidentandvella@yahoo.com to help free Equatorial Guinea.
You're listening to Lynn Cullen live at pghcitypaper.com. Once again, here's Lynn Cullen.
We were just thinking of where it could be that we could go. I mean, is there some other place that's better? We decided Equatorial Guinea. Dave writes, public schools teach evolution and sex education. Do they? I'm not so sure they do anymore, Dave. I believe that's all very sex education. It's so watered down, forget about it, even if it is taught in evolution. There's a lot of states where, in fact, they've passed these bills that they teach evolution in a, well, you can believe it if you want or not. I know if you're, this is what they say. Really? Seriously? You ask these science teachers now what the pressure they're under to not teach what their subject, because it is simply unacceptable. Unacceptable. Come to think of it, I sort of skimmed this article about how they've redated what they think the time period is when those cave paintings in Europe, the first ones that we know about, the paintings of hands and whatever. I don't think it's the horses yet, but it's, whatever. There's certain cave paintings, the earliest ones. They've reconfigured where the time they think it is, and it was something like now it's 44,000 years ago or 42,000, and they're starting to solidify the timeline a little bit better. And I'm thinking, what? You couldn't teach that either, could you? That doesn't jive with the... Is it jive or jibe? That's like, what was the one we were talking about yesterday that I get wrong? Huh? Discrete and discrete. No, but there was another one. Home and hone. Honing in, homing in. Jibe and jive. Anyway, but it doesn't, I don't think it fits their biblical reality or whatever. And then Dave points out, and public schools don't teach the Bible. And he says it's that simple. That's what brought him. You know what? I'll tell you. Remember when it started? It did. It started up when they took God out of the public schools, and that started it up. And it just, you talk about it. You want the definition of a slippery slope? Have a court ruling that says something about, you can't say a Christian prayer at the beginning of the school day of a public school, and just wait. And about 30 years later, you're living in Afghanistan. I mean, it fires these folks up. So then we get homeschooling because people don't want to pollute their dear little children's minds with, I guess, information and perceived knowledge of help! Oh, and here it is. Here's why. Here, I got a little article right here. It's in the paper today. And this is why they think they cannot let up for 1 minute, and why this country is going to hell. And they've got to beat people like us. You know why? Here it is. Headline: Gays receiving Pentagon salute. Well, that's it. Katie barred the door. We're gone. We're finished. You've got, believe it or not, the Pentagon is holding like a gay pride event. The Pentagon. Leon Panetta, the Secretary of Defense, wants to honor, oh God almighty, the contributions of gays in the American military. Well, okay, that's it. That's it. See why you don't want government? This is what government does. Why, just last summer, gays couldn't even say they were gay or they'd be booted right out. That wasn't even a year ago. And now, look at this. Oh, it's Gay Pride Month. So, the Pentagon is holding its first Gay Pride and appreciation of gays. This kind of thing fires up those loons, scares the bejeepers out of them. As you know, it's so fascinating. We scare the hell out of them. They scare the hell out of us. And so what you got, we really do have a nation that's, I don't care what the pledge says about being indivisible. It is totally divisible, this nation. And on the one side, you got these terrified right-wingers who don't realize that left to their own devices, they would institute a westernized Taliban culture here. And on the other side, you got us terrified, the rest of us, liberals, secularists, people who still have a functional brain that can discern between fantasy and reality. And we're terrified, understandably, of them. It is a total, and from all accounts, if you can count it, it's just about evenly split. But here's what scares me. They're more fervent. We've talked about that before. They are more fervent. Oy. I can never remember a joke. And I was listening yesterday to NPR, and they had some people on. There's an off-Broadway comedy right now called, I think it's called Old Jews Telling Jokes. And they had some of the cast members on, and they were telling these Jewish jokes, and you could die. They were so funny. And then they had people calling in with other ethnic jokes and or jokes about lawyers and blah, 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 blah. And I was laughing and laughing and laughing, and I kept thinking, oh, I got to tell that on my... I can't remember a one. I can't remember a one, and some of them were like almost one-liners. I can't remember one. Dang it. Too bad. Although I'm thinking it's worth a trip to New York. I might have to see that. That was hysterical. Apparently, one of the things that brings the house down every night is one of these guys who does, a perfect old Jewish accent, just recites the lyrics to Old Man River in a Jewish accent, and people are apparently they almost have to call 911. People are dying laughing. Old man river. I don't know. I can't imagine. I gotta see it. And what was scary is some of the jokes I didn't get. People would call in with jokes, and I would think, what? I didn't get them. I'm trying to remember one about a bartender that, and it's literally a one-liner, and I can't think of how you say it to get the, never mind. Oh, I remember one, and this was not a Jewish joke, but it was the people were telling jokes. So, a ham sandwich walks into a bar, and the bartender says, "We don't serve food here." Jess doesn't get it. Come on! A ham sandwich walks into a bar.
Oh, I get it.
And the bartender says, "We don't serve food here."
I get it.
All right, okay. And the one I can't think of, and I don't want to, and it took me a while, was it's about a termite walking into a bar and asking the question, but where, like, is the bar tender? He wants to eat the bar. Is the bartender? But you wouldn't ask the question, is the bartender? He asked a question about the bartender, and you scratch your head and think, what? This is a joke? But I can't figure out how you would word it to come up with but jokes that you don't get right away can make you feel so stupid. Okay, what got me onto that? I don't know. Maybe because I desperately need a laugh. That could be. So, this will not surprise you. Found this in USA Today a few days ago, but it's out of Carnegie Mellon. Research done here on stress in humans. And it turns out that, this is no shock, that Americans are more stressed than they were 25 years ago. That stress levels have just increased and increased and increased. Yeah. And the groups most stressed, and this is a no-brainer. What are the groups that exhibit the most stress? Well, it's the groups that don't have power. The people who are under someone's thumb. Those are the people who feel the most stress. So those with the highest levels of stress were women, people with lower incomes, people with less education. Interestingly, the demographic that grew the most in stress in the last few years are the ones that have been more immune to it. White, middle-aged men with college degrees and full-time jobs. Those are the guys on top. And that was the demographic that saw the biggest increase in stress. And that's because this economic downturn hit them like none have hit them in a long time. So they played a little catch-up to the women and minorities and lower-income people. So the study figured that its economic pressures are greater, and another stressor that wasn't as large before is the endless onslaught of information. So in other words, the fact that, when I ride the bus, everyone's got their little, gizmos, and we're constantly taking in information and passing it off, and things are happening, almost simultaneously. There's that one ad where, I'm sure it's for a cell phone, right? I can never remember what it's for, but, oh, that's so 10 seconds ago. Yeah, you know what I mean? And the whole premise of that ad makes me sick. Like, oh, you didn't know so-and-so? I knew it 10 seconds ago. So what? If I didn't hear about it till next week, so what? And so just the ratcheting up of the pace of our lives and the stimuli, which just keep, exploding, that you cannot get away from it unless you actively work to. But as I look at my son and his friends, I don't think they even have a sense of what a quiet place is like. They don't want it. To them, that's not. I mean, my God, the other day I said, what the hell's going? There was something emanating from his computer. The television was on, and he's sitting with another device. I said, what are you? I said, is there something here that are you watching that? Or are you watching this? Are you doing that? I'm doing it all. I said, well, I'm going insane. He said, well, what are you doing? You're checking your email. You're thising and thating. And he said, blah, blah, blah. Yeah, right. It was all this information just sort of like careening around the air. Oh, and of course we're stressed. Jesus. So here's the good news from the study. The older you are, the less stress you have, generally. So that they found that 30-year-olds have less stress than 20-year-olds. Jess doesn't believe it. I am here to tell you that generally has worked for me. And at the age I am now, I definitely feel less stress. But I'm in a situation where, I don't have a lot of stressors. I mean, I don't understand how age necessarily does that. I think with age, you're allowed to have less stress if you have a certain level of, economic security and other things where, I would imagine if you're 70 years old and you're worried you're going to lose your house, because of foreclosure, because you can't make, I would imagine that would be very stressful. So I don't understand a lot of this stuff. I suppose we should have the scientist guy from CMU on and he could explain it, but you know what? I'm not that interested. Let's take a break and we'll be right back in a minute.
Stick around for more with Lynn Cullen Live after this.
Go to bergbargains.com for great deals on tickets to the City Theater, Symphony, History Museum, and the Carnegie Museum. Check out this week's big deal featuring 50% off tickets to the Carnegie Science Center. bergbargains.com, Pittsburgh's only online deal site where the deals don't expire. bergbargains.com.
The Town and Country Tour features 15 gardens in Squirrel Hill and Shadyside all day long on Sunday, June 24th. See these wonderful gardens, talk with experts at each stop, and support the Pittsburgh Botanic Garden, coming to life near Settlers Cabin Park. Order tickets by calling 412-444-4464 or go to their website at www.pittsburghbotanicgarden.org.
Get Lynn Cullen Live on your smartphone. Go to citypapermobile.com now for Pittsburgh City Paper's brand new mobile app. Get the latest restaurant reviews, event listings, movie times, and of course, Lynn Cullen Live on your smartphone. citypapermobile.com.
Hey, Billy, want to go to the state fair?
Yeah!
Well, you can't.
Huh?
Well, you see, Billy, when you throw away money on wasted electricity, you throw away everything you could have done with it. But now your parents are becoming energy efficient. They could save hundreds of dollars a year and take you to the fair next year.
I want to go now.
Oh, I know you do. Saving energy saves you money. Learn more at EnergySavers.gov. Brought to you by the U.S. Department of Energy and the Ad Council.
Have a question or an opinion? Call Lynn Cullen at 412-316-3381 or email lynn at pghcitypaper.com. Now, more with Lynn Cullen Live.
Okay. Well, I don't want to talk about Sandusky. I refuse. I can't even read the stuff anymore. But on the abuse of children front, there's another big story today. This is not the church. This is not, but this is another totally male-dominated, totally male operation. This is when this stuff happens. And it's the Boy Scouts. Yeah, the Boy Scouts. So, because of a court case in Oregon, and because of fallout from it, and this was a case where a jury awarded over $18 million to a former Boy Scout who was molested in the 80s, I believe, in the early 1980s. Somehow, coming out of that case, there was an effort to get at the Boy Scouts of America files that were known to exist on allegations or whatever of sexual misconduct by their, troop leaders. And the Oregon Supreme Court yesterday ordered the unprecedented release of more than 1,200 files that detail the sexual abuse of Boy Scouts over a 20-year span. And this is believed to be just a little, part of the iceberg, since it is known that the Boy Scouts of America have kept what they called, get this, here's what they called it, the ineligible volunteer file. The ineligible volunteer file was filled with horror stories of leaders and other adults in the program abusing Boy Scouts. And this file has existed since the early 1920s, but has been kept under lock and key. So the Oregon Supreme Court has insisted that a whole hunk of this come out, not all of it. And it's generally believed that and I'm sure it's true because it's true in the real world outside of Boy Scouting, that the vast majority of Scouts who suffered sexual abuse never reported. Never, ever, ever said a word. So what's in the file is, again, the file is a tip of the iceberg of the files that the Boy Scouts have, and the tip of the iceberg that's being put out there is really just a tip of the iceberg of what the real level of abuse in Scouting really was and is. And, okay, hello, caller?
Hey, Lynn, I can barely hear you.
Okay, I can hear you.
Okay, so yell if you want to interrupt me. Well, first of all, I was watching a show last night about the plague, which is a wonderful topic in itself, really very uplifting. But this pertains to what you were already talking about, which is just human rights in general, civil rights. And I think that, we may suffer setbacks in our lifetime, but I really think what happened, the reason I brought up the plague topic was because at some point so many people died during the plague that the aristocracy, the landholders, didn't have the labor. Enough land was cleared that the peasants could go out and farm for themselves. And therefore the aristocracy had to do the work themselves. And the point I'm getting at is I really think if you look at human history that rights kind of drive themselves. there may be setbacks, there may be the American Taliban, but I really think that it can, I don't know if it's human nature or what it is, but I think civil rights and human rights are constantly driven and progress. Not to say that obviously there have been movements that strived and worked very hard and people lost their lives to achieve rights, but I think it progresses. I think it's an organic thing that progresses on its own.
I understand what you're saying, but don't you think it is also conceivable that there can be a backlash to it, and you can end up moving back in the other direction?
Sure, yeah, and I think that's inevitable, but I think that backlash doesn't go back as far as the progress forward. So in other words, we may take 3 steps forward and 2 steps back, but we're still 1 step ahead. At least that's the way I like to I think about it.
Well, I hope you're right.
There's and as far as the technology and all that overload goes, there's a theory out there, or a law called Sturgeon's Law, who was a science fiction writer. And he said 90% of everything is crap.
I agree. And right.
Whether you look at it in terms of all those technological devices or in terms of legislation, that 10% is the important thing, and you just got to kind of muddle through it and hope that we do truly keep progressing the way that I mentioned. So I don't know. I'm just trying to think of it in a positive light.
I thank you for it. Thank you.
All right, Lynn. See ya.
Okay, bye. Yeah. Let's hope. 3 steps forward, 2 steps back. 3 steps forward, 2 steps back. Okay, maybe. I don't know. I would agree, though, that change rarely occurs until there has to be a level, like with the plague. I mean, a level of disruption and discomfort before people are given to move, organize, act. And I don't know. Often the very people who are the most put upon are so busy just trying to keep a roof over their heads and food on their tables that they don't have time to engage in, I guess we hear that a lot, and I can see where that's true. Also, the fact that, in this information age that we live in, I so agree. I'm with the 90% rule. In fact, I think it might be even more than that. So much of what we spend our time taking in and processing is junk. It's just, not just our food. There's junk food, there's junk information, there's junk entertainment, there's so much junk. And it isn't in any way the stuff that makes you stronger or smarter or feeds you, literally or figuratively, in a positive way. And I think that's another stressor, because when you're ingesting all of this stuff, because a lot of energy gets burned ingesting crap that would otherwise or could otherwise be used for, something that would serve you better. So, I agree. There's a lot of pressure then on us to be discriminating about what gets our attention. And I don't know that takes energy. And I think, again, most of us just take the easy way out so that we were talking about the newspapers the other day. I mean, so that it's easier to read People magazine than it is to read The New Yorker. It's easier to read, some salacious account of some celebrity's life than it is to read about what your, elected representatives are up to, which may have a huge impact on your life. it's hard. It's hard. And I don't want to. But let us hope the caller was correct. And that generally the movement is forward. So I was reading this thing about birds. God, the number of birds that die because of us. It's just unbelievable. But some of the tallest structures in the world are communications towers. They're the huge towers that are built for television and radio and broadband and phone calls. I mean, all that stuff, the purveyors of all this crap, most of it, require those huge towers to be communicating with each other. Amazingly, just 30 years ago, there were just a few more than 1,000 of these big towers in the United States. Today, we don't even know. Easily 84,000. And that will be tripling and doubling, whatever, as we go on. So these towers are so tall, many of them, that, of course, by, I don't know if it's the FCC or the FAA or somebody said, you got to have lights on the top of these so planes don't fly into them. Well, it turns out they've done a lot of scientific research. It turns out those lights on the top of those towers thoroughly confuse migrating songbirds. And the songbirds either fly into the towers or, for some reason, they get confused and they start circling these towers by the millions. They start circling these lights on the towers until they become so exhausted they actually fall dead to the ground. So at the base of these huge towers, there are just extraordinary numbers of dead songbirds. They have discovered that if, rather than a solid light, they do a blinking light, that works just fine for the airplane pilots, and it doesn't mess the birds up anywhere near as much. They just did a test of this in Michigan, and the bird deaths were cut almost in half. So we now know that that's something. Just put the damn thing on blink. And there's already, of course, the people who own the towers are already pushing back. It'll be, I don't want to put it on blink. The National Association of Broadcasters saying the science isn't right. And, you wonder why. Why is it so hard to get anything done? Anything done. And what's fascinating is it's the very tallest towers that do most of the bird killing. The researchers found that it was less than 2% of the towers that killed 70% of the birds. And we're talking about millions, as I said, every year. They figure as many as 7 million birds are killed every year simply by these communication towers. Now, the ones that bump into the towers the most, and they're so pretty, they're the pretty little ones that sing so beautifully. The black-throated warbler, the Connecticut warbler, all these warblers, soup. The ones who don't, doesn't get screwed up by the towers, the good old American robin doesn't. And the chickadee doesn't. And the common grackle doesn't. So, they see the birds that are dead at the base of these things, and it's the songbirds, the warblers. Now, so the towers kill 7 million. But just so you know, we'll put that in perspective. The towers kill 7 million. It's estimated that the toxins and pesticides we put into the environment kills 67 million birds a year. Okay? Now, when you're digesting that, let's put another 120 million dead birds are killed by hunting. Even worse than hunting, 130 million birds are killed every year by power lines. And the two biggest killers, those aren't the biggest killers. It's a wonder there's any birds left. The two biggest killers of birds, killing, God, give or take a few 100 million here or there. The two biggest killer of birds in this country are, what do you think? Buildings and windows. That's one. Windows. And I hate to tell you this. Cats. Cats. So in descending order, the killers are cats, windows, power lines, hunters, pesticides, automobiles, 60 million. And then we drop into the single digits for communication towers, 7 million. And then wind turbines, you hear people freaking out about the wind turbines killing them, 400,000. It's like nothing compared to, leave the wind turbines out of this. Geez, that's nothing. It's a drop in the bucket compared to power lines, windows, pesticides, automobiles, communication towers. And airplanes come in at the bottom at killing about 25,000 a year. How many birds must there be? If you've got just right there, that's about 3 billion almost killed a year. And we ain't talking natural causes. Wow. So you know what's hazardous to the environment? I told my son this the other day, and he said, he started arguing with me. You know what's the most hazardous thing to the environment? We are. We are. Case closed. All right, well, on that happy note, I want you to go out there and contribute to the killing of our bird brothers. And be nice to the furries. And have a great weekend, okay? Toodaloo.
Lynn Cullen Live, Monday through Friday from 10 a.m. to 11 a.m. and archived at pghcitypaper.com. The opinions expressed on Lynn Cullen Live are those of the host and do not necessarily reflect the viewpoints of Pittsburgh City Paper, Steel City Media, and its advertisers.